Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Angelo Paparelli, and I'm delighted to be here. I am a former member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association Board of Governors, an active AILA member, and a former member of the Board of Advisors for the American Immigration Council. I'm happy to present to my colleagues in the bar an opportunity that I think will have tremendous impact if we embrace it. And that is All American Story Project. This project is reminiscent of some other things that our organizations have done in the past. If you may recall, of course you do, the American Immigration Council has had its annual writing contest in which young students talk about why they are happy to be part of the United States, a nation of immigrants. And if you recall also, there was a coffee table book that won several awards called Green Card Story, which dealt with a similar theme. And what we're about is to talk about countering the negative messages that are replete in the media today and seeing if we can't set forth a new side for Americans to see the contributions that immigrants make to our beloved country. And I'm pleased today to have with me Amy Friedman. Now, truth be told, Amy is my former creative writing instructor. I took a UCLA extension workshop and writing the personal essay and memoir. And there I met Amy, and then I was blessed to be on her mailing list. And lo and behold, in my inbox came an email about a passion project that Amy is now going to describe. Amy, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks a million for having me, and greetings to all. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, whenever you're watching this. Um, and I just want to say, Angela was a delightful student in my writing class, and it's important, I think, maybe to understand that my background is as a writer and a writing teacher, specifically engaged with memoir and personal essay. An All-American Story was sort of born out of that passion. I also want to say how much I admire the project that AIC does because you can't get people started writing too early, is my book. But this project was born several months ago, early in the kind of beginning of ICE raids in this country, when I read a story in the newspaper about a woman actually in Missouri who had been detained by ICE, had been in the country for 20 years with a complex immigration story, like so many people have. And her neighbors, her friends, she was a waitress in a pancake house, and her neighbors and friends were so upset that she was gone. She has three young children, and they all gathered together and raised money and sort of kept asking questions. They said, this isn't one of the worst, like people were talking about deporting. This is our favorite waitress. This is our children's friend's mother. This is our neighbor. And I was struck when I read that story by how much confusion I think maybe there is. People recently hear the word, not any of you, I'm sure, but too many people, when they hear the word immigrant, forget that most of us are immigrants of some kind or another. I'm a grandchild of immigrants. And I realized that because these people knew this woman and they knew her story, that she was a human being to them. And that generated their love and their compassion and their activism. And I thought, why don't we collect the stories of immigrants? And so there's a little bit longer tail to how this kind of got born, but basically for the last 6 or 7 months, I've been putting out the word to collect the stories of American immigrants, of first and second gen Americans, and the experience has been so beautiful just collecting them. Um, Partially, and I know this from teaching memoir, when people revisit their own personal stories and sort of remember their experiences and find ways to tell other people, it's a very healing experience. Just the telling of the story can be healing and inspiring and life-changing, I would say. So I've worked with about 120 people or so far. Some of them are writers. So some of the stories we've collected are from actual writers, and they don't want much help. And some people have never written anything. And so part of what we do, myself and a team of producers, is work with people to help them to tell their stories. Some people are telling stories in art, some in music, some in dialogue, and some in memoir, personal essay. And part of why I'm so moved by Angelo's introduction of me to all of you is because the work that you do is so important and brings you into the world that I'm trying to help illustrate. And I'm hoping that we can find ways to work together.
So,
Um,
Amy, where do we go from here? What is the timeline and how
right.
can we all participate?
Well, the project is going to launch with the first stories that we have collected so far on December 10th, which is the Human Rights Day. Um, we thought that was an appropriate launch day. Um, Anybody, everybody is invited to submit work. Anybody who is an immigrant or a first gen or second gen immigrant is invited to submit work. On our website, we do have a really clear description of exactly what we're looking for and what's required and how we can help if people want help, or where to just submit if people want to submit. Although we're going to launch on December 10th, the rollout will be at least a year long through election day next year. We'll be collecting stories as of this moment, at least through June of 2026. So there's a long time, or, it goes fast, but, and perhaps longer. If it starts to feel fruitful and people are enjoying it, I hope it will grow. But the intention is to, as you mentioned, Angelo, is really to kind of flood the zone with these beautiful stories that tell the story of what this beautiful country is. And to minimize the misinformation and disinformation that people sometimes.
Could you give us a little insight into the team and their backgrounds?
Yes, I would be happy to. So the first person I called when I thought about this is a woman named Jessica Tuck, who is an actor and producer and director, and is a woman I had started a nonprofit about 14 years ago, supporting youth who are impacted by detention, deportation, and incarceration. So youth who have family members who, in many cases, have been detained or deported. And Jessica and I worked together on some theater projects. She produced them. She's a brilliant storyteller and a brilliant curator of storytelling. And so she's my co-pilot on this project. We're also working with a woman named Samina Ali, who is herself an Indian immigrant and an activist and a brilliant writer. Um, she's based in the Bay Area and uh, is just great. I'm just getting to know her. She came to us by hearing about All American Story. Um, Another writer based in New York, named Roland Tack, who's running part of the project, which is called Conversations, which are dialogues. And again, those are described in detail on the website, what those look like. So Roland is a playwright, an old dear friend of mine, also a brilliant writing teacher. and he's working with people who would like to just submit little mini plays, if you will. Um, and then we have a couple young people, which I the cast of characters keeps changing, but as of today, a young woman named Vita Mueller and a young woman named Paulina Luke are the Instagram specialists. So we have an Instagram page, um, and we have a great
And
web designer.
and you are talking about some theatrical events
Yes.
and
So
museum-based events.
yes. So when this dream first started growing, my first thought, and the reason I called Jessica was to do a theater event, a big event where we were in a theater, one in LA, one in New York, with people on stage telling stories. We have a number of professional actors who would like to help be involved and do some theatrical presentations. We are planning to do that, but not until the spring now. There are a lot of bells and whistles that have to be brought into corralled, but we will be doing that. We would like to do storytelling and also workshops in museums, in bookstores, in community centers and religious centers. So we're reaching out all over the country to talk to people about bringing all these tale tellers to various venues. So it's going to begin as an online adventure, but the plan is over the course of the year to expand out to all these different venues. One of the first places we spoke to was in Los Angeles, the Vende Museum, and we plan in early spring, late winter, early spring, to do a series of talkback sessions at the Vende Museum, where we'll invite some of the people involved to come do talkback sessions with community members. And prior to those, a couple of the writers and I are going to run some sort of informal workshops at the museum.
So let me now tell my colleagues how they can be involved. Certainly, you can submit your own stories, but you could encourage your clients, whether they want to be anonymous or want to have their names revealed, to submit their stories. And I think that this is the best way to counter the negative, false images that are created in social media and broadcast and cable media as well these days and in print. And so this is our opportunity to have a good news story, a truthful good news story. And I want to thank you, Amy, for describing this. And I want to encourage my friends and colleagues in the immigration bar. I know you are very eager and vigilant advocates for the rule of law and for justice for immigrants, but this is another way to contribute. And so please consider doing so. Thank you.